Hello and welcome to this Piney News Update. It's January 30th, 2017, and today there was a press conference that I was at with local leaders from both counties, Nassau, Suffolk. The presiding officer, Mrs.Gonsalves, was there from Nassau, as well as Dwayne Gregory from Suffolk County's legislature. And this is about local leaders calling for emergency support to preserve Long Island bus service. And this was arranged by Vision Long Island. I'm going to read some of this to you. Local elected officials, small businesses, community leaders, and transportation advocates gathered today to show unity of support for Long Island bus service and call for increased funding in order to preserve existing routes. Suffolk County has cut a slew of routes last year, including impacting 500 daily riders, and Nassau County is poised to see massive cuts to service this year that it could impact thousands. With the federal government planning on spending trillions and New York State spending billions of dollars on transportation infrastructure, it is unconscionable that bus service for students, working families, seniors, and the disabled are left out in the cold. As the New York State budget was released, public bus advocates on Long Island have taken note that once again there is no mechanism toward a dedicated funding stream from the state for Nassau and Suffolk County bus systems outside of the State Transportation Operating Assistance Funds, STOA, which has had a fixed formula for funding throughout the state. As proposed in this year's recommended budget, $5 billion will be appropriated for transit assistance. $4.5 billion will go to the MTA, with a $30 million increase, and other transit systems receiving $502 million collectively. Non-MTA transit in the downstate region continues to receive less than its fair share in funding toward local operating and capital costs. With the fiscal climate in both Nassau and Suffolk counties being seen as uncertain and challenging, cuts to public buses are once again being proposed in Nassau and have already been seen in Suffolk as a means to balance the budget. Without a dedicated funding stream for Long Island's transit system, continuality of operations and needed expansions will again be in question, jeopardizing the livelihood of Long Island's most vulnerable, especially as the only state funding for Nassau and Suffolk are at risk of being reduced due to cuts to the system, perpetuating a downward spiral. Yeah, so if they cut all the service, they'll actually wind up getting less from the state. The STOA funds go down. So I'm just going to quote a few people here. I'm going to quote a few people here. First, Mrs.Gonsalves. Long Island needs the state to do the right thing. Nassau and Suffolk County pay a ridiculous amount in unfunded mandates to New York year after year. It's time that they start thinking about us and fund this important service. For years, state funding allocated to Nassau and Suffolk County for operation of their bus systems has not been adequate and has not been allowed for sustainability or proper expansion of their routes for their 3 million residents. Additional operating assistance towards helping some of Long Islanders most vulnerable is long overdue, with lack of transportation disallowing those who rely on it access to job opportunities, education, medical care, and more. So that was a statement from presiding officer of Nassau County Legislature, Mrs.Gonsalves. And I'll read to you Suffolk County from the Honorable Dwayne Gregory, presiding officer of Suffolk County. Suffolk and Nassau counties are vehicle-dependent communities. Simply put, you cannot get around Long Island without a vehicle. We must find a way to preserve existing bus routes not only to protect the students, working families, seniors, and the disabled who rely on them, but also to promote a sustainable future. Communities depend on bus service. It is a necessity in their lives. Eliminating public transportation routes removes their independence and their ability to work, to go to school, and manage their lives. Furthermore, multimodal transportation is critical for building a Long Island that suits the interests and needs of our next generation. All right, so I figured I'd read those statements to you, and we have a bunch of them, and then here I'll read one from NICE. This is from Michael Setzer. NICE Bus is an extremely efficient 20th century transit system, and it's ready to evolve into a powerful 21st century instrument for Nassau County to advance on so many fronts. Let's keep it alive and healthy so it can fulfill its destiny. And there's a whole bunch of quotes here. A lot of people here Ellen Birnbaum, legislator for Nassau County, said nice bus is a fundamental part of Nassau County's long-term success and growth, but for too long it has not been made a priority. Today marks the day when the entire Long Island region comes together and puts progress and people first. And so I want to, I'm actually quoted in here too, saying cutting bus service will put thousands out of work, damage our economy, and drive up crime. And I also spoke at this hearing, or well, a press conference today. So I want to show you some clips from this press conference now. You'll see several elected officials speak, and you'll see the embarrassment that News 12 has become, because News 12 was the first media to actually leave before all the other media. Fios 1 was there, CBS was there, Pix 11 was there, and News 12 left before all of them. On a side note, I just want to say News 12 has become one of the worst run news operations in the entire New York metropolitan area ever since it got sold to Altus. I've seen declining quality. I watch News 12 when I go out into various places, and I see lately they're just covering political stuff, these protests. They are very anti-Trump now. They have an agenda, and that agenda isn't covering your local news like they should be doing. So News 12, you really should be ashamed of yourself. That's one reason I will never ever go back to Optima. You look at Altus. I mean, look at they're actually very similar to the Transdev. Look at the logo even. I mean, there's so many similarities. So anyway, let's get to some clips from today's press conference, and of course we'll probably see more here than anywhere else.
These are students, these are healthcare aides, these are medical assistants. It runs the gamut. And we need to make sure that we continue funding those routes, because we do stand at the end of March to lose those routes again. And I don't believe we can just sit here idly and not support the emergency action plan that's being put forth by Vision Long Island. Come across and fund it, because too many people are relying on us. So together, I think we can have a very strong voice in Albany and of course in Washington as well. We're leaving nobody off the hook. Everybody has to do its fair share, okay? His or her fair share. So this is the beginning, Eric, I think, and I'm hoping that it works, and that when March comes, the end of March comes, we're going to be hopeful that the bus routes in both counties can be restored, and we don't have to face finding monies here in Nassau County or in Suffolk County to keep them flowing.
So we support the action plan, and we're not an urban area, but so sometimes we get overlooked at our needs and for public transportation, but we are asking for support because we do need it for our public transportation system. And yes, Eric, you will be hearing probably within 60 to 90 days a plan that we're putting together right now to address some of our budget issues. So we're doing what we have to do on a local level, but we still need assistance from the state, and that's what we're asking for. Please support us, because those most in need the access to public transportation so they can get to and from work. And it's important that we do that for our local economy and our local region. So thank you very much for coming out today and showing your support.
Give a big round of applause to Eric for a great effort. Everybody, tremendous action plan. Just for getting Norma, Dwayne, and Kevin all in the same room, all from different walks of life. It's truly amazing, and I think this must be a first. This is the first time I think I'm a part of this, so I have to give a little kudos to Eric on this. But look, I mean, this is a really, this is a very, very simple issue at its core. Is that people need to be able to get to work, people need to be able to get to the doctor's office, people need to be able to get to school. We need a reliable bus system. This action plan goes towards that. We're talking about getting revenue and resources to our area where folks from our area are already paying into these caveats of dollars already. So from that standpoint, we're not asking for anything in addition to anyone else. We're just asking for our fair share. And that's what it really comes down to more than anything else, because we need a system that's in place that allows people to be able to account for where they need to be, so that they can be held accountable, whether they got to be at school or they got to be at work. they should have a reliable bus system, and that's what we're going to continue to fight for, and that's what we're going to continue to try to do. So I'm happy by the outpouring of support today that's here with us. I'm happy by the support and the guidance that I think Eric has demonstrated with the collective efforts from everyone here. And let's try to get this done for the people that need us the most, those that are at a disadvantage and not able to afford a car or vehicle to be able to get to and from the work. So thank you again, everybody.
I'm happy to be here with my colleagues in Nassau and Suffolk as well to talk about this important issue, and because it's one that affects both of us. In fact, our buses cross county lines, and those are some of the routes that have been cut as well. Like Dwayne, I have a working class district, and many times this is the only way that our residents have a way of getting to work or to school or to wherever they need to go. And this is something that cries out for help from the state. And as I said, we're not asking for anything more than what we deserve, just our fair share. Give us the ability to work within our own systems, to make efficient systems, but we need the proper funding to be able to do that. And I look forward to working with my colleagues in Nassau and in Suffolk and with Eric to get this plan done and make it a reality. So thank you again, everybody, for coming.
Truly is a coalition of the willing. We have government, we have business, and we have community. And that's really is what can make the difference here. There's some great ideas when we're talking about recurring revenue for the buses. That's something we have to take very seriously. The idea of using some ride share, Uber and Lyft, some of the proceeds from that, I think is a great idea. We need the state for that. Also looking at getting a little slice of the MTA payroll tax to pay for the buses, for public transportation infrastructure. Real recurring revenue that's actually possible, so I encourage our state legislators to take hard looks at this. And in the meantime, we've got to find some bridge funding for this year. So there are some ideas. Our fund balance at the county is many millions more than it needs to be, according to our policy. That's real money that we can use right now. We can also glean up to $9 million from, technical here, but other than personnel expenses, which is money that is not mandated to be spent in a certain way. It's actually discretionary. So there are real problems that we can solve. We can solve them in the long term with recurring revenue and solve them right now with money that we can find right now to keep these buses. And if we're talking about transit-oriented development, if we're talking about keeping our young people, public transportation is the linchpin for both of those. Thank you.
And I'm so happy that Eric has organized this, and it's a bipartisan effort. There's no question that the state and federal government can spend as much money as they want on building infrastructure. We can do our best efforts to try and grow our economy, but the key to making it significant and the key to making a lasting impact is by having safe, affordable public transit need from the state and federal government and within our own budgets to ensure that we continue to provide that safe and affordable transportation. Thank you.
I can't believe in this day and age we decry our traffic problems here, and if you just drive up 110, you'll be decrying it again when you leave here, that we're talking about fighting cuts to public transportation, as opposed to what we should be doing is fighting for expansion of it and promoting it and coordinating with Long Island Railroad so that our people can get to work, they can get to the doctor, all the things, and get people off the roads and on buses. But thanks again, Eric.
This coalition together. It's very hard to talk about transportation and not talk about buses. We're seeing this whole discussion being played out in the state with transit-oriented development and transportation, but they refuse to acknowledge bus riders, especially suburban bus riders. We're being hit the hardest when we're seeing budget cuts. We're the ones that lose routes every year. I mean, just last year we lost 10 routes, then we got them back, but now we might lose 18. These are real people. These are their lives, and if we can't get this money, if we can't get this emergency money, and we can't get money for the future, we're going to see a lot of people that are going to be out of work. We're going to see a lot of people that can't get health care. We're going to see a lot of people that are just going to not be able to live their lives. So thank you to everyone here today for coming out and talking about the buses.
Get our fair share from the payroll tax. $26 billion goes to the MTA for their transit systems. We need our fair share to come back to Long Island for Nassau and Suffolk County. I represent over 1,000 members that are employees, that are bus operators, mechanics, that keep the transit system working. We need the full transit system, and it needs to grow. But at this point, we just need to get the funds, our fair share of the funds, to keep the service that we have and not have any more route cuts. Thank you.
It's great to hear everyone gathering and talking about some concerns, Nassau and Suffolk-wide. I have to say, as a private operator, private owner, that this has hurt us. We've lost 3 jobs, 3 routes, 18 jobs, and to say nothing about the ridership. It's really, and that's what it's about. It's about the ridership. We need to work together, work hard to raise some capital, raise some funding to keep the operation, keep the system intact as a system. So I want to thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mike Setzer, CEO of A Nice Bus. Mike.
Hey, thanks very much, Eric, and thanks for your leadership on this, and thanks to all of you who are up here this morning. I'm not going to repeat what you've said, except to say that you've been eloquent in describing how important public transportation is. I do want to add one little thought here, and I chatted with John Carrata from Suffolk Bus this morning, and he's in complete agreement with us. We collaborate on many things. Both of us recognize that the transit systems that we operate need to evolve into the 21st century version of transit service if we're to support transit-oriented development, and if we're to help attract millennials, and if we're to continue to be a vibrant part of the local economy. So we're going about that right now. We're working with different sized vehicles, both smaller and larger, depending on the demand. We're very much involved in technology development so that we can deliver service in a smart way as the 21st century demands of us. And we're doing this in spite of the fact that we face this sort of existential threat of just maintaining the service. Suffolk cut service last year. We're about to face some decisions about service cuts this year. We both hate doing that, but because we are tied so closely to the fiscal situation of our 2 counties, we rise and fall along with the very tough decisions that they have to make. So, if you want to get to the 21st century, 2 things have to happen. 1, you have to keep the patient alive in the short term. And 2, we have to have a reliable, predictable funding source in the future so that instead of planning ups and downs, we're planning over a multi-year horizon. So again, thanks very much for inviting me, Eric, and pleased to be here.
So people spoke out against these cuts, and I find it pretty ridiculous that this governor, Andrew Cuomo, I said it in the last one and I'll say it again, I'm almost now more mad at him than I am at Ed Mangano, because he should know better. Providing all this money, $120 million in Long Island Railroad station upgrades, and renovating stations like Merrick and Belmore, which are immaculate and don't even need a renovation, and giving them Wi-Fi and charging stations. Meanwhile, people are losing essential bus service. You know what's going on here, and I'll tell you what's going on here, is that the people who take the train are considered more important because they have money. That's what's going on. You know, Governor Cuomo, his father was somebody who actually did a lot for the poor. Andrew has done nothing for the poor. He doesn't give a shit about the poor or the middle class. Ever since he stepped foot in the governor's mansion, he only cares about one thing, the rich. And he stands there talking about helping immigrants, legal or illegal. Well, there are plenty of immigrants, legal and illegal, that rely on buses and that will be hurt by these cuts, Mr. Andrew Cuomo. So he is one of the biggest hypocrites, and I have to say, one of the worst governors New York State has ever seen. As far as, he is like the worst. I want to read to you this letter to the editor. Somebody sent this to me, actually. It's a very good letter to the editor here that was sent into the Great Neck, I think one of the local Great Neck papers. And this is in regards to Cuomo's budget, actually. Cuomo's speech provided little substance. When it comes to transportation, Cuomo's speech made for some great sound bites, but provided little substance. Cuomo failed to give any specifics on how he will come up with the $7.3 billion he still owes to fully fund the $27 billion 2015-2019 MTA 5-year capital plan. $1 billion to finish the Long Island Railroad East Side access to Grand Central Terminal, $6 billion for New York's share of the $24 billion Amtrak Gateway Tunnel project from New Jersey to Penn Station, and $2 billion for the construction of the Long Island Railroad Main Line third track. Cuomo could not even find $12 million to prevent the Nassau Intercounty Express Nice Bus from closing the Rockville Center bus depot and eliminating service on several routes. Also needed is future electrification of Long Island Railroad service on the Port Jefferson branch from Huntington to Port Jefferson, that's $360 million. On the Montauk line from Babylon to Spionk, $360 million. On the Ronkonkoma line from Ronkonkoma to Yaphank, $120 million. And on the Oyster Bay line from Oyster Bay to Mineola, $120 million. This does not include the several hundred million for a new storage yard on the Port Jefferson branch between Huntington and Port Jefferson to fully support electrical multiple unit MU cars. All would provide support for a one-seat ride to Grand Central, making the Long Island Railroad more attractive to riders. Suffolk County needs $100 million for the Route 110 bus rapid transit and $50 million for the Nichols Road BRT, connecting Stony Brook University and the village of Patchogue. Nassau County needs $400 million for the Nassau Hub BRT. Cuomo reminds me of the character Wimpy, who famously said, "I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today." But Tuesday never seems to come for commuters and taxpayers. The general consensus here is this, and the general consensus at the meeting today is that I hate letting the county off the hook, but this right now is the best, quickest solution we have, and we have to work together, even if we disagree with each other, even if we disagree on, NICE versus MTA and all those stuff. We have to work together to get fair funding from the state because we're not getting our fair share. The MTA collects a payroll tax on all Long Islanders, yet that payroll tax just goes to the MTA. We don't get any of it. None of that goes to supporting NICE Bus or Suffolk County Transit or local transit systems. It all goes to the MTA, de facto actually taxing Long Islanders to pay for most services that are used in the city. That's true. A lot of Long Islanders use the trains, but the trains don't go everywhere. Buses are just as important. Just because people who take the bus generally earn less than people who take the train doesn't make them any less important. And that was the general consensus today. Cuomo, you leaders in Albany need to step up to the plate and pass some emergency funding measures and a sustainable funding formula for NICE Bus in Suffolk County Transit, as well as all the downstate suburban, including Beeline. They don't get their fair share either. The city gets everything, and Long Island Railroad gets Wi-Fi and all this other stuff. All these things Cuomo talks about. Meanwhile, you have essential things. And the Long Island Railroad, there are many things that are falling apart on the Long Island Railroad, but he'd rather talk about Wi-Fi and charging stations than about doing something about all the broken rails. Cuomo, you're on notice. New York State, you're on notice. Long Island is going to fight hard for its fair share, and I will tell you this. If we don't get it, I think it is really time that Long Island think about forming its own state. Nassau and Suffolk. Rhode Island is a state. Long Island can be a state too. I know this has been talked about for a long time, but it's clear that we are not getting our fair share. And I've actually spoke with Norma Gonsalves, actually personally, who happens to be a very actually nice lady. She's been around. She's been around a while. She's seen all the stuff. And she said that even the schools on Long Island aren't getting their fair share of funding. We are taxed up the wazoo here on Long Island, and most of that money goes to the city. And yet the city will point the finger back and say, "Well, no, it goes to you." Suburban people, we are getting neglected here. All right, and it's time that we get our fair share. And I'm glad to see people are coming together to fight for that. It's very important. We need our buses a lot more than New York City subways need free Wi-Fi, a lot more than all that important stuff. We need our buses here on Long Island, Mr. Cuomo. So you better step up to the plate and do the right thing. Take it easy.